particular mood this evening. Like I feel like it's kind of like, it's almost like, you know, winter's come. I feel like I'm wrapped up at home in like in a cozy place with friends, and that definitely is colouring what I'm about to say in a positive way, I hope. So here we are on this series, this kind of whole year series exploring the Noble Eightfold Path. And this week, this month, we arrived at the theme of perfect effort. But before we want to start into that, I've got a few things I want to say. So as we've been sitting here meditating, I've been realizing that this is a theme very close to my heart. So those of you who know me well, who've heard many of my stories before, some of the stories I will tell you this evening you will have heard before, because it's, yeah, often people say, and I think there is some truth to this, that everyone's got their thing. Yeah, so, you know, like people can talk about lots of different things, care about lots of different things. But as I was sitting here meditating, I was thinking, you know, this feels like this is one of the central things I care about, I suppose, in life, in practicing the Dharma. Henceforth, some of you have heard it before, but I'm not going to apologize for that, because the other thing I want to say is one of the aspects of my character, which I've become more and more aware of, is that I'm, the language of Myers-Briggs, I'm an introverted intuitive. And what that means is that I kind of have these intuitions about how the world works, particularly what other people are like. And I have extremely high levels of conviction about it, which is sort of which just comes through me, as it were. So what I mean is that I'm going to make some very sweeping statements about the nature of human consciousness, i.e. your consciousness, which may or may not be true. It's true for me, and I have this strong intuition that it's true for basically every human being I've ever met. But you can tell me afterwards whether I'm right or not, whether it's particular to you. Those are quite grand statements. I'm thinking, oh my God, now you're like expecting something really. Anyway, we'll see how we go. So yeah, so perfect effort. So what I've got a couple of things to say. Some of them I've got a couple of like preliminary remarks, and we've got the main kind of bulk of what I want to say, and then we kind of wind down. So just to kind of give you a sense of the flow of things. So really, when Buddhism talks about right effort, it particularly is talking about the quality, the quality of mind with which we bring to our activities, and the consequence of those activities. So it's got an internal and an external dimension. And so first of all, so starting off with the external dimension, that kind of the primary question I think we need to ask ourselves when we're talking about right effort is, what are we trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve? So human beings, we're constantly trying to achieve something. We're constantly trying to achieve all kinds of different things. So just in a way, it's important to remember kindness and gentleness with ourselves, but just really asking yourself, what am I trying to achieve here? And the flip side of that is it worth your life energy? Is it worth it? So as I was thinking about this earlier, there's a classic image from a very popular self-development book, which was written in the 80s and was popular in the movement 20 odd years ago. And one of the first questions the author asks in that book is he asks, what wall is your ladder leant against? So here we are, you know what it's like, we're all, you know, like life is, we're constantly climbing up these ladders, aren't we? We're doing this, we're doing that. What wall is your ladder leant against? And is it worth leaning your ladder against that wall? When you get to the top of it, will you have got somewhere you want to be, which is worth being? So as we were sitting here meditating, I was thinking, oh, Dharmashalin, what's a good example of that? And I was remembering a phase quite some years ago, but not super many years ago, when I was into playing online video games. Online video games are fantastically designed to activate the ladder climbing aspect of our consciousnesses, to the end of you spending lots of time playing the game and hopefully giving them lots of money, not necessarily to fulfilling your human potential. And I remember a particular phase where I'd spend like a really considerable amount of hours playing this video game. And I got to the end of it and I was just like, what have I achieved? What was this for? And I could show you, I could log back into my account, which I haven't logged into for, I can't even remember how many years it is now, like 4, something like that. And I can show you the number of imaginary non-existent things which I achieved in that time. I built, I got, I accumulated. But what is that what human consciousness is for? Of course, for more, why am I telling you about that? Well, because in a way that's the most like embarrassing or kind of, in a way, slightly tragic expression that drive has found in my own life. Of course, in many of our lives, that finds much more obvious external expression in pursuing wealth and career and kind of multiple sexual experiences, or just kind of pleasure in general. So those are the primary things that most human beings dedicate their time and their effort to. And I'm not, like money is necessary, a meaningful career or a sense of success and purpose and satisfaction in our life. That's an important criteria for human well-being. But at some point we have to ask ourselves, is it enough? Is it worth the time we're investing in it? Gampopa, one of the primary Buddhist commentators in the Tibetan tradition, he talks about laziness. And one of his, I can't remember his other definitions of laziness, but one of them is waging wars and amassing fortunes. Yeah, he describes that as laziness, because of course he's talking about laziness in the field of what is most significant in human life, what lasts, what matters. And he would suggest that amassing fortunes and waging wars do not last and do not have deeper significance. You could, in a way, you could take that as a metaphor for just getting ahead. So what are you cultivating? What walls are you leaning your ladders against? And if you got to the top of a ladder, would it actually satisfy you? So in my kind of my blurb, I had this kind of catchphrase thing which I made up, which was something like perfectionists, workaholics, slackers, underachievers, where's the middle way? As you've probably already realised, I've somewhat changed my mind about what I want to talk about, so I hope you weren't particularly interested in that subject. But I think but what I've got to say now does speak to that. So if it isn't already abundantly clear to you, effort, the quality and direction of your effort is central to your experience of being alive. It's central to your Dharma life. I would argue that this raises an immediate and often quite problem. If this raises an immediate problem for many of us, this is where we come to my intuitions about what other people's minds are like. My perception is this raises quite an immediate problem for us as we enter into any kind of path of growth or development, because my perception is that almost every human being I've ever met is strongly driven by some kind of unhelpful combination of Protestant work ethic, perfectionism, a lack of self-worth, a need to prove themselves. There's a drive present within most people, which is, I would argue, is not entirely healthy and often decisively unhealthy, destructive. If you're thinking that doesn't apply to me, then I'd politely suggest that you go back to somewhere between the ages of your 13th and 16th birthday and ask yourself, did you basically on some level just sign off of engaging in life as a way of getting around this painful aspect of your personality? So what I mean is, it's like this drive, this sense of pressure to excel and to be more. And if you don't think this applies to you, then I'd suggest in many cases, this is probably highly true for me, that I just sort of aborted from making an effort in any area of life because the whole thing was too painful. So I've just been kind of underachieving for the rest of my life. It's not completely true. Like, 20 years of Dharma practice has done a substantial degree to kind of heal and purify that pattern. But there's certainly like if I go back to that phase of my life, there's a high level of truth in that. So how do we find balance? Or in a way, I suppose the question is, so how do we make an appropriate kind of effort in our Dharma lives, given that almost everybody is prone to either pushing too hard or slacking and underachieving in the rest of their lives. So like, how do we not just do the same thing in our Dharma lives? I'm afraid there's no magic answer to that question. The primary injunction is to to kind of reflect on yourself, reflect on your personal history, reflect on how that question of effort manifests in the rest of your life, and see if that can help bring light on how to apply it into your Dharma life. And of course, importantly, that then feed back into the rest of your life, so that we do a better job of having a balanced and creative sense of effort in the rest of our lives, because it's not like our Dharma lives and our normal lives are actually in any meaningful sense separate. So I feel like I need to give you some examples now, because you're probably all thinking, what is he on about? That's a bit abstract. So, the personal example is just around the corner, actually. So, it's interesting, in Sangha commentary on this material, he's at this point, he says this thing of like, you need to reflect on your life and kind of see what the quality of effort you bring to your everyday life is, and be really honest about yourself. He goes on to spend about a page saying that most people think too highly of themselves. I find that interesting, that here we are 50 years later, and I would say that almost everybody I encounter thinks too lowly of themselves. Perfectionism, lack of self-worth, I would say, are endemic in our society. So how does that relate, and how does that manifest in relation to me? Well, I'd say, there's a number of things. I suppose what I notice in myself is a habitual tendency to undervalue the positive qualities that are present, and to overemphasize aspects in which I'm failing in, and think that I should be better. Does that make sense? So it's like, so what is good, I undervalue, and what isn't great or could be better, I overvalue, and therefore that further calls into question the value that is already present. So it's like a double whammy of just feeling bad about yourself. Obviously sucks, obviously doesn't help us grow. So coming on to the kind of, in a way, the thing that I'm most keen to encourage you to do. So the Buddha, when he talks about the four right efforts, when he talks about right effort, he talks about four right efforts. So these are eradicating unhelpful aspects of our behavior, things that cause us pain. So stopping what isn't good. He then talks about preventing what isn't good happening again. So get rid of what isn't good, then don't let it come back. And then the Buddha talks about growing what is good and keeping it once it's there. So like two kinds of stopping, two kinds of starting. So the main thing I really want to encourage you in this evening is, given what I was just saying about I perceive as chronic tendency to think that we're not good enough, to undervalue what is good, to over-focus on what we're not doing, I want to really, really strongly, out of all of those four right efforts, everyone has a natural proclivity, something which they're drawn to. I want to really, really strongly encourage you to attend to and value maintaining. So attend to and value maintaining. So maintaining is the act of recognizing, strengthening, deepening, dwelling in what is already good. So I would argue that almost everybody I meet does not do enough of this, myself included. So here comes the little story. which some of you have heard before, but it feels like there's a new slant on this at the moment. So, it's been on my mind a lot for the last month or two, which is, so maybe it's no surprise, but here I am telling the story again because it's been on my mind a lot. So when I first coming into contact with Triratna, I was like a somewhat messed up young 22-year-old, and I had particular aspects of my character which I liked and I identified, and I had big aspects of my character which I found painful, unwanted, I felt ashamed of, I couldn't acknowledge, and I really strongly identified with practicing Buddhism as about doing something about the problems in my characters. Like, we need to address these, and partly that was understandable because they were problematic and they were causing me pain. But what I was really not very good at was fully valuing the positive aspects of my character and strengthening those. So quite a few years after I started going to the Buddhist Center, I had this really strong question, which was, what's my path, or how am I practicing the Dharma? This was predicated upon a sense of perfectionism and not good enough, because I looked at all my friends and I felt clear what they were good at, and I didn't feel like I was good at that. So it's like, I looked at my friend who was really into meditation. I'm like, crap, I'm meditating. I looked at my friend who read a Buddhist book a week. I wasn't reading a book a week. I felt bad about that. I looked at my friend who, like, all of these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they were like, kind of like that, he could see them. I wasn't doing that. I felt crap about that. So what was I doing? And I remember having this very, very strong experience walking around Padmaloka, one of our retreats, just doing like one of the classic loop walks there, and having this, talking about this. It was a real question for me. And I can't remember who I was talking to, but I can remember where I was. It's unusual for me. And I was like, oh, maybe the path for me is communication. Maybe it's something about connecting, communicating well with people. And as I said that had a ring of truth to it, but I definitely sort of thought, yeah, but that's not proper Buddhism. Proper Buddhism is meditating or reading books. But it's like, okay, that's the best you can do. Like, there, like, pat on the head. Off you go, do that then. And in a way, without arrogance, well, that's been the central thing that I've practiced for the last 20 years, more consistently than meditation. Anything else, it's the transformative practice and power of and potential of communication to transform myself and transform others. And that feels quite an exposing thing to say, but as I say, I'm sitting in a room with friends, and I kind of like, I can allow myself to trust in that, but I have effectively practiced that. Not perfect, but nobody said it was about being perfect, apart from the Buddha, but anyway, we'll come back to that later. So why am I telling you all of that? So then, this is now about 10 years ago, it's 10 years ago, just about now actually, I'd stopped my couple of previous jobs ago. I'd just finished doing this very intense job working for Subhuti, one of the senior teachers in our tradition, being his PA, which was a fantastic opportunity and also one of the consistently hardest things I've ever done in my life. I really struggled a lot. And felt very, very in touch with all the ways in which I didn't think I was doing a very good job of it. And we were doing this thing called rejoicing in merits, when we're kind of like, I was with a group of people and they were all rejoicing in my merits because I was leaving. And one of the things he said to me, which really touched me at the time and has come back more strongly recently, he said, oh, Dharmashalin, the thing about you is that you're one of the friendliest people I've ever met. You're one of the best connectors that I've ever met. You do that so well. So I found that very moving because I've had a lot of respect for him. But he said this, which I found really, really touching. This is what's been coming back to me. He said, and I can see that that's a practice for you. You had an aspect of a quality of your being, and you've developed it and you've strengthened it, and it's become this really positive quality of yours. And that's what he really wanted to celebrate. Was it's not just like, oh, there you go, you've got an aspect of your character. It's like, yeah, but you can turn that into a practice. You can strengthen that and deepen into that, and it can become a more and more significant aspect of your being, and that has real power, that has real potential. So this is the thing which I feel like I spend my life saying to people or seeking to encourage in people, this journey to find what is good within us and deepen it, and firstly so there's a multi-stage process. So firstly to find what is good in us. And I don't say, like, in a way I say like that's because there's loads of crap and there's just this tiny 1% of good and 99% rubbish. It's not like that. But it's like really look within your hearts and find your positive qualities and then value them, recognize the value and worth of them. Really recognize them. Don't just go, like, because that's what I did, 20 years ago. I was like, yeah, you're friendly, but that doesn't really count for very much. Yeah, proper Buddhism is that. So it's like really valuing that and then letting it grow and deepen and flourish. Because then what happens, and this is my strong conviction, is that once that quality is established, it's like if you imagine like the image of a mandala, once you have that sense of the center of your mandala and a sense of deepening strength and confidence in that practice, that then means that you can engage in the other right efforts from the basis of creativity and kindness, particularly eradicating and preventing. So easy to engage with those aspects of practice from a position of I'm not good enough, I'm rubbish, I shouldn't be like this. It's self-hatred or lack of self-esteem. There's like those that can be so. Those elements can be so kind of poisoned. That's dramatic language, or like undercut, or just kind of twisted slightly. And like, let's be clear, we all have aspects of our characters which cause us and other people pain. We all have aspects of our characters which we need to learn to let go of. But what I'm saying to you is that I've got this strong intuitive conviction that almost everybody does that most effectively, most lastingly, and most powerfully from a place of deep love and appreciation of what is good within ourselves. Because then it's like, rather than this sense of recrimination, it's like, well, it's just like this, this growing force of creativity, of the positive qualities that are being, they feel constrained by what limits us, and they just kind of naturally grow out of it, rather than always like, stop it, don't do that. Like I said, I can have a somewhat dramatic internal life, so I can relate to myself in that way. So yeah, that's. I want to finish on something else, which is a bit of like a jump into something else. So in a way, just kind of sitting with that for a moment and asking myself, well, is that true? Dharmashalin, it's like, I'm not, I don't have insight into the nature of every human being's consciousness. I feel like I've got a reasonably good perception of human beings. And I suppose I know for myself I feel there's a deep truth in what I say for myself. And I feel when I say that to others, often it resonates, but maybe it doesn't resonate for you. Maybe there's, and that's okay. It's like, I don't know it. But it's kind of asking yourself, well, okay, so you've got these qualities of, eradicating, preventing, growing, maintaining. Which one of those is most important for you? Which one of those can you, I suppose there's something about, for me, this kind of recurring thing that I feel that we all need to find our place of confidence. We all need to find where I am completely confident of this. Everybody needs to engage with life, with their Dharma lives, from a place of confidence. And so you need to find your place of confidence in that mandala of efforts. I'm strongly suggesting that for most people, that comes from deepening and strengthening a sense of maintaining what is positive and good. But of course, it isn't one size fits all. So maybe there's a different thing for you. So in a way, just to kind of, just to finish what I want to say, one of the other things, so this is a bit of a, as I said, a segue into something else. So one of the other things that when I think about four right efforts, and it does actually connect with what I was just talking about, is I think it's, one of the things that can trip us up is that we can be over-focused on achievements rather than qualities. So it's like we have a sense of achieving things in our life, like it's like whether that be money, success, status, a particular job. That can manifest in kind of like in terms of spiritual practice as well, you know, like whether that be getting ordained or, you know, gaining insight or whatever it is. So really, and that strongly leads us into a propensity to comparison and negative self-esteem, because it's like you're evaluating on that basis, aren't you? Yeah. So I think one of the central things that Buddhism is saying, one of the gifts that it's given us all, is it's saying that the qualities of our mind and our heart are more important than the achievements. So it's not, so what I'm saying is it's not about what you do, it's about the way in which you do it, the qualities of your mind and heart that you bring to your life. So you don't need to be anyone special. What you need to do is bring love and awareness into your life. It's obviously, this is pertinent for me because it's like it's really easy to get into comparison, isn't it? So I go to my kind of like movement-wide meetings, and it's really easy for me to get into like this quite painful comparative mind state about the relative success of this Buddhist center relative to other Buddhist centers, and it's easily turns into a numbers game. And numbers games crap for everyone, because if you're winning the numbers game, you feel artificially inflated, and if you're losing it, you feel bad. So yeah, I can easily do that, and I have to really, really work. So it's not about numbers; it's about qualities of consciousness. It's about the qualities of our being. So in a way, just to reinforce that, I'm going to just read you a little bit from Sangha, which. It's one of my favorite quotes of his. So we'll finish with that. So he's talking. He says, "Someone came to me once and said that he did not feel he could be very useful because he had no particular talent. I told him, think of yourself as an unspecialized human being. People think that if they can't make themselves useful in some way, they can't type, they can't keep accounts, they can't cook, they can't write or give talks or paint or play a musical instrument, there's something wrong with them. But consider, this apparently useless human being is the product of millions upon millions of years of evolution. You are the goal. You are the goal. You are what it has all been for. You don't have to justify your existence by being useful. You yourself are the justification for your existence. You haven't come into existence after all these millions of years of evolution just to sit down in front of a computer or to keep accounts. You are the justification of that whole process. You are an end in yourself. All that you can really be said to be here for is to develop into some higher form of human life, to become a bodhisattva, to become a Buddha. So don't be ashamed of sitting around and doing nothing. Glory in it. Do things spontaneously out of a state of inner satisfaction and achievement. It is a virtue to be ornamental as well as useful.